Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 1 of Dead X-Men, written by Steve Fox. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, this issue opens in a dystopian New York with the former X-Men treehouse completely destroyed as Frenzy appears from a portal alongside the rest of her team. The team that was killed during the gala, a team that consisted of Prodigy, Jubilee, Dazzler, Cannonball, and their leader, Frenzy. And as they survey their surroundings, they are surprised at what they are witnessing, for this was not what they expected, and just as they were trying to figure out what was going on, a horde of demons arrived on the scene, and they was led by none other than Illyana Rasputin, Magic. Now, according to the top corner of the page, their temporal location is Moira Engine number 3, which is 1 month after Illyana Rasputin ascended to the Lord of all Hells and raised the entire planet. Now, according to Prodigy, this version of Magic was responsible for killing everyone on this timeline, and they were not about to sit around and see what power she could bring to bear. So in a hasty retreat, this team disappeared back into the portal that they came from. So with that disaster nearly avoided, our team teleported themselves back to the Atlantic Krakoan island, which is currently held within the White Hot Room. And when they get there, they are immediately met by a hostile environment, but quickly Frenzy was able to dismantle those vines. So as the team quickly returned to their feet, they came across Rachel in all her burning glory. Now, during this interaction, we find out that Rachel is the one responsible for coordinating everything. She tells them that it's taking her a lot of focus just to communicate at a speed they could even comprehend, for the clock operates very differently in No Place X, which is located outside space and time. And then she goes on to tell them that lingering and those timelines may draw unwanted attention, so yanking them in and out of the timeline at her current rate and speed is extremely difficult and can be compared to dancing in between seconds. So following that explanation, Prodigy thanks Rachel for unlocking his mind, because she was able to make him faster at detecting any signs of Moira, even though it came with slight side effects. Following that, he then goes on to say all he needs is one version of Moira, who is not cybernetic, so he can lift the information from her mind that Xavier needs to create a mental roadmap of her past. So with some context given, Rachel points out that she was entrusted by Xavier to assemble a team for this precise mission. And she had thousands of mutants to choose from, but out of all those mutants she picked these 5 to be her team. Now Xavier had planned to talk to Moira in her 10th life, right before her power manifested, but in order to know exactly when that is, he needed this team to extract the dates, times, and locations of when it happens, mainly because they cannot trust anything Moira told them before her betrayal. And the mutant that can best track down that information is Prodigy. So Prodigy is their best bet of getting to the truth, so the fate of all existence ever is on his shoulders. And to make things worse, Rachel goes on to say that she hates to say this, but they're running out of Moira engine pathways, because Sinister only made so many of those monstrosities. And if they don't find what they're searching for on their next jump, then they might just be out of luck. So with the stakes being known, we transition over to temporal location, Moira engine number 2, which is 15 years after the end of planet Earth. And when the team arrived there, they were met by an hostile environment, for none of them was able to breathe in this timeline. So, as all of them gasped for air, a portal immediately opened up behind them and pulled them in before snapping shut. But little did they know, a hooded figure watched them from a distance as all this went down. At this point in the story, this hooded person is a mystery that will be revealed later in the future. So anyway, following that, we picked up with the rest of the team appearing in front of none other than Abigail's X-Men team. Now this team consisted of Blink, Random, Rootfire, Armor, and their leader Abigail Brand herself. So with the realization dawning upon Jubilee's face, she almost instantly knew that any timeline with Abigail Brand as the leader of the X-Men must not be a good timeline. So with that going down, we find out that this ship is the final mutant refuge. So with all eyes on the new arrivals, Frenzy begins to tell Brand that they are their allies more or less, and that they are from a different timeline. But before Frenzy was able to finish her statement, Prodigy dropped to his knees in pain. Now, the reason why Prodigy dropped to his knees was because Prodigy's power is to absorb knowledge and skills from anyone near him. So long ago, he used to have a bunch of limiters put in place to keep his brain from overloading, but he volunteered to have those limits removed for the sake of this mission. So with that out there, Abigail gets upset that Prodigy was able to read her mind. And by doing that, he was able to figure out exactly what happened to Earth in this timeline. He states that she was able to get what she always wanted, an intergalactic war, but the only problem was Orbis Stellaris was the one pulling the puppet strings. The same string Abigail thought she held tight. So because of her cockiness, the whole galaxy had to pay the price. And in the very beginning of the war, a wormhole strike on Krakoa vaporized the island before any precogs caught a glimpse of Orbis's plan. And following that, all of Orcus and most of the Avengers and 92% of all life on the planet was sniffed out in an opening salvo. So with that devastation rocking Earth, Orbis then turned his attention to Araco, just in case anyone got the notion for revenge. So with nowhere to go, a handful of surviving mutants scattered throughout the galaxy with Abigail Brand as their leader. So with that said, Abigail Brand tells him that he sums it up pretty good, which led Armor to ask David if they were here to save them, which Frenzy responds by saying this is paradoxical because they were not supposed to reveal their mission to anyone in this timeline, let alone talk to anyone. And because of that, Frenzy then goes on to let them know that their clock is ticking down pretty fast and they need to get back to Earth. But that is when Blink and Random tells them that they should be lucky that they saved their lives, because nothing is left on Earth except for scavengers, and the only reason they found them was because they were on a supply run. And at that moment, an explosion goes off on their craft, causing everyone to go flying. And as they return to their feet, Rootfire let them know that they were able to draw the exact attention they were hoping to avoid, because Orbis Stellaris was able to wipe out Nimrod and the other AIs that allied with Orcus. But the AI was never limited just to Earth, and the Technarchy has filled the void. Which meant the freaking Phalanx was now on the scene, the same techno-organic species that wants to assimilate all life in existence. And the reason why they were chasing them was because their craft was hauling the last cache of the Mysterium in the universe. So with the battle waging on, Orbis Stellaris arrives just out of range of the Phalanx's artillery to watch from a safe distance. Now, as he watched, he blamed the World Farm for giving up their location, because his ascension would have taken place over the next decade if not for this rare mistake. So once he gathered the remaining Mysterium, he would be able to do what he needed to do to accomplish his goal. But the only problem was getting this material is harder than getting them Chron Crystal, the very nexus of realities itself. Now on the next page, we get a really cool spread of Abigail Brand's X-Men fighting off the Phalanx with all their might. So as the situation grows more difficult, Prodigy drops to his knees with another brain freeze. But this time it was because Moira was close, and to their luck, she was still human. So with their target within reach, Cannonball asks about the remaining mutants' odds here if they don't help. In which Frenzy reminds them that they knew the mission when they were chosen. Because unfortunately, there is nothing they can do to change this timeline. Because the Moira thereafter may be depowered, but there's a Moira clone in a Sinister's engine somewhere out there, and when she dies this all will be reset. So if Prodigy is correct about a human Moira being here, then they can still fix everything. So they're gonna have to trust that Brand's X-Men can handle themselves. So as they rush off, the Starjammer pulls up and provides cover fire for Brand's team. And on board that craft was Juggernaut, Sunspot, Lockheed, Mercury, Hepzibah, Smasher, and Warbird. So as help bombed the Phalanx from above, Prodigy is struck by yet another brain freeze, but the problem is they are getting even more intense as Moira starts heading towards their direction. For Prodigy never absorbed a mind like hers before. So as their target got even closer to their location, we transitioned over to Warbird crashing into Orbis Stellaris' ship, which made way for Smasher to eliminate the crystal powering his world mind. So as the battle heated up, Cannonball, Dazzler, and Jubilee provide cover as Prodigy makes his way closer to where Moira's signal is coming from. But unlucky for them, some debris from Orbis's ship came falling onto the ground below, and a part of the crystal landed on Prodigy's chest. So as the stone starts to burn into his suit, the hooded individual pulls up, and before it can strike, Cannonball blindsides her in order to buy his comrade some time. So with the hooded figure down, Moira's identity is revealed, and almost instantly, Prodigy jumps into her mind, and at that moment he gets to see every single moment of her life leading up to this point. So with the roadmap downloaded, the team made their retreat and left well enough alone. Now, following their escape, we get a small battle between Moira and Abigail. And to Abigail's surprise, Moira is still alive, and actually gets the upper hand on her and eventually wins the fight. So when that is said and done, Moira reveals that she had to stay alive to build a special object. An object made from adamantium, carbonadium, vibranium coating, Xron's black mole brain, and now the final piece, a shard of mysterium. Now the reason why this object is important is because it will allow her to cut a path back to her very first life and allow her to start all over again and make sure that she comes out on top. So with that said, this first issue of Dead X-Men comes to an end. And let me start off by saying this was a pretty good issue. And I was happy to see Moira actually playing a part in this story. In fact, on a data page, they explained how Moira was able to get all the materials needed to create the object in question. Like how she got the carbonadium coil from Omega Red's body, the adamantium from one of Wolverine's skeletons, she had to cut off a monk's head to get access to a black hole, and finally, she had to dig up Gentle's remains to get the vibranium berry with him. And as for the mission itself to retrieve the data and the time Moira manifested her powers, I think there is more to the story, because the team was under the impression that Charles wanted to talk to the young Moira. But in the rise of the powers of X, Charles told Rasputin that he wanted to take her out. So with that out there, if you want to stay in the loop about any individual storyline, then how about you hop over to the playlist section down below or in the link cards above to get all caught up on the X-Men runs. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.